Hi everyone, I'm Kimberly Nain and I'm actually a senior policy analyst with the Ministry of Health. And I'm here to talk about what it's like being a policy analyst. So, before I can explain to you what a policy analyst does, I have to explain to you what a policy is. Now, a policy it's a set of rules, like guidelines to essentially help an entity, organization, or a country to achieve something. And it can either be operational or it can be national. National policies are is what I focus on. Operational policies are usually smaller, well, not smaller, but entities focused on just that entity. National policies are focused on the entire country. And as I said, I focus on national policies. So a policy analyst essentially they review policies, they come up with new solutions to problems that are identified, and they may recommend these solutions. And it's a continuous process of review, analysis, and recommendations and advice. So that's what a policy analyst does. So, in other words, we read a lot. We read, we write, we research a whole lot. So, in order to be a policy analyst, there are a few things that you might need to check boxes on. Of course, you absolutely need to have a degree in a relevant area. In my case, I did a degree in law. If you want to be an education and policy analyst, maybe you should get a degree in education or in public governance or in policy. It is very dependent on the area that you want to go in. So find your niche, do your degree within that because a degree will absolutely be necessary, and in some instances an advanced degree might be also be necessary. As it pertains to the other skills, you definitely have to have very, very, very good communication skills, both orally as well as written communication, because remember, you have to write a lot, and whoever is reading that documentation has to be able to understand what it's saying clearly, concisely, and it must be to the point. As it pertains to oral communication, I'm sure you're understanding what I'm saying right now because I try to break it down as best as possible. But also, you have to be able to communicate that information to the different tiers of persons that you will be communicating with, whether it be the ministers, the heads of entities, or your or staff within on parallel to yourself, above yourself, or below. So you have to be able to communicate that information effectively. That's one of the biggest ones. You have to be able to research. Research is a very important thing. So you have to get your penmanship up. You have to be able to quickly digest information, understand it, and be able to critically analyze that information. So that's my next one for you. You have to be very good at critical analysis and you must be confident with it, because with the area of policy, you have to be confident in what it is that you are putting forward to whoever it is that is receiving your information. Um, Sometimes the policies can be a little bit controversial. It happens depending on the area that you are. So you must be knowledgeable enough on the area to be able to decipher the information and analyze it, and then to confidently provide your response through the form of recommendation or through advisory. And in doing so, of course, your analysis process will have to include the different variations of analysis uh, methods, whether it be a SWOT or a breakdown or whatever form of analysis that is best applicable to that policy. You have to be able to do it to then come up with your recommendations. What else could I say? I would say it's also good to be a people person. It's absolutely necessary in the area of policy because you have to work with people. Um, Mind you that when you're doing a policy, whether it be from scratch or coming from somewhere else, you have to communicate with relevant stakeholders. And those stakeholders can be high and they can be low. So you have to be able to communicate with them effectively. And being a people person absolutely helps. Those are the core ones I can think of at this time. So you have to be able to critically analyze. You have to be confident. You have to communicate effectively. You have to be a people person. And I would also say a team player. Um, yeah. So my career journey was very interesting. You might have to get a book and write this one down. So to start, I actually am a St. Jago alumni, proud alumni of St. Jago High, the best high school in Jamaica. There it is. And I actually did 7 CXC subjects and I passed all of them. It was not geared to any one specific career. Honestly, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do when I was in high school, but I passed nonetheless. And I did not go to sixth form. I actually went to the Michael University College to pursue a diploma in science education. And somewhere in that journey, I decided I wanted to, I don't know, study science or medicine. Don't know what happened. Listen, when you're young, you don't necessarily know everything you want to do. So I did pursue my diploma, and somewhere along that line, I did not go ahead to go study medicine at the University of West Indies, but instead I went and I studied law. It's a strange switch, but it happens. I somehow got interested in law and I went to do law. So I did my degree for a Bachelor of Law at the University of Technology. Thereafter that, like I said, you need a book for my thing. I was in the music industry for quite some time. And during that time, I ventured more into the business from the angle of a musician herself. I actually had a booking agency at one point too, where I was booking for international disc jockeys. I had Miss Bleeze from Belize, I had DJ Paul Michael from Rhode Island, and I had DJ Steam from New York. So I had a very interesting background. Along that time, I was very deep in the music industry. I did tours with Omi. I did the Summerfest. I had an album out. I was the Bob Marley ambassador one year. I was doing work with UNICEF as a musical ambassador for the One Love movement in response to COVID-19. And then yes, COVID-19 happened. That weird time happened where everything stopped and nothing was happening. But it's strange because during that time, nothing was going on in the music industry because everything was stopped. You couldn't go to shows, you couldn't do anything. It was lockdown. So for me, I was still applying for jobs even though I was in the music industry. And along that time, I got a job from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. I was actually I got a job as a property manager. And the reason for that is because while I was doing music, I was also doing property management for some vacation home rentals in Jamaica. And that gave me that level of experience and, knowledge to be granted that opportunity. Took the job. And during that time, let's just say word got out there that I was doing a good job, I suppose. And I was asked to do an interview for a post that was available for a policy analyst opportunity within the Ministry of Health. And mind you, I do have a degree in law. So I would have satisfied the necessary entry requirements. So I did apply for the job. I did my interviews. I prepared they asked me to do a presentation on something and research, to which I did. And I was successful. I landed the job. And it was like being thrown in the deep end. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was the middle of a pandemic. I got a job as a policy analyst in health in the middle of a pandemic in a developing country with limited resources. Can you imagine? And I had to essentially figure it all out within a very very short space of time because policy is going to require you to be very knowledgeable of things before you can give any advice or provide any suggestion or any of those recommendations. So it was a lot, but I endured, we made it through, and it was wonderful. I do now love policy as a result. And I've moved from the permanent secretary's office into the policy development division, and I'm now the senior policy analyst almost 3 years later. What I love about policy is that it's not boring. It is not boring at all. You will never be bored with this thing, especially if it isn't an area that you are genuinely interested in. As I had said before, once upon a time wanted to be in medicine, and I'm in health. It's close enough, right? Hey. So with policy, being in health, an area of my interest, you're not bored. It's a lot of work. I mean, trust me, it's a lot of work. I don't sleep sometimes, but it's fun because sometimes the interesting parts are getting to communicate with people from across the world. Sometimes I'm in meetings at 2 a.m. No, I'm seriously in meetings at 2 a.m. sometimes. So it can be demanding, but it's interesting because you're like, wow, I'm communicating with these top people from the World Health Organization and PAHO and Commonwealth Secretariat, people who I don't know. Once upon a time, you never thought you would be classified or considered within that space, but there you are. So you kind of feel important, you know. But it's very interesting because of those things, as well as the fact that you are actually making changes, real changes, for whether it be for your country or for your entity. Because like I said, a policy analyst does not necessarily work for a national entity like the government. It can be for a company too. So I feel like this is my way of giving back. So it's it's good. I like it, and you should try it too. So, my advice for persons and young professionals or even students who are interested in going into policy, just remember that with policy, it comes with lifelong learning. It's not 2 degrees and that's it. Understand that policy changes with whatever is happening in the world because international policies can affect you right here in your own space. Also, be mindful of the fact that there is always an opportunity for upward mobility because policy does not remain national. It can be within your company, it can be national, and it can be international. So you can grow in policy. The opportunities are endless. And you need policy analysts everywhere in every major industry. You need policy people. So it's a very interesting, rewarding, well, heap of work, but very rewarding area to go into. And you have to keep learning. So I have friends who ask me if I'm never gonna stop doing some certifications, like the one who's recording this record video right now. But it comes with the territory. For instance, with health, I can use the example of the pandemic. None of us have ever really seen a pandemic in our lives. It's the first one, first big one. And that being said, as a result, a lot of countries, Jamaica included, have now recognized the need for implementing new policies to prevent what happened before, because we did realize that there were issues. And in doing so, things like the One Health policy is now something we're looking at doing. As a result, I have to learn more about it, and so do all the other persons who may be required to implement it. And that's the same in every country. So, as a result, policy is never ending studies, it's never ending learning. So once you're able to commit to that, you will actually enjoy it and go for it. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. I hope you choose policy. And remember, this is Kimberly Nain, Senior Policy Analyst at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and you are watching Island Pathways. Like, subscribe, and keep watching.